So let's talk a little bit about the major conglomerates that control third-party grading in the antiques and collectibles trade at present time. And there's a reason why we're doing this video, because recently a smaller, lesser-known third-party grading company failed. And I want to talk about this in depth to explain to you the risks of attempting to start your own third-party grading company in the year 2024. So there are three mega conglomerates that own smaller grading companies that roll up through these mega conglomerates. And most of these mega conglomerates at present time are funded by private equity. These are not publicly traded companies. These companies have a lot of collector confidence. They have a lot of cash on hand in their proverbial war chest. And a lot of the main top tier auction companies also use these grading companies. So it kind of creates this vicious cycle where if you're going to go into the market for vintage comic books at present time, obviously you're probably going to go after CGC graded comic books. If you're going to go into the market for coins, you're probably going to go after coins that are either graded by PCGS or NGC at present time. Now, we're not going to talk about CAC in this video. That's going to be a separate video. If you don't know what CAC stickering is, if you don't know that CAC was a coin stickering service that pretty much created their own third-party grading company to compete directly with NGC, PCGS, we're going to talk about them in a separate upcoming video. What I'm talking about here is that there are three main mega conglomerates that control the market for third-party grading companies with an iron fist. So I'm going to break these companies down for you, and I'm going to give you my assessment. These are all top-tier companies, I assure you. You've probably heard of most of these companies. You just don't know who they roll up through. So we're going to start. Number one, Certified Collectibles Group, also known as CCG. They are located in Sarasota, Florida, and they control such companies as CGC, which grades comic books, trading cards, movies, video games at present time. They also control NGC, which grades coins. They also control PMG, paper money guarantee. They grade paper money and currency. Now, there are two other companies affiliated with the Certified Collectibles Group that you probably never even heard of. One is NCS. That stands for Numismatic Conservation Services. If you come across a coin that was buried in the ground for over 100 years, and the coin has a lot of damage, maybe it has dirt on it, you can send it to NCS for them to conserve that coin. Then they can send it to NGC, and as a result of the conservation services, that coin will most likely get a higher grade than what it would have if you would have just dug it out of the ground and sent it directly to NGC. So that is a big business right now. I really have a lot of respect for NCS because I do know a lot of top tier dealers and collectors have used their services before. Now, also, another lesser-known company that is owned by the Certified Collectibles Group out of Sarasota, Florida, thank you, Matt Nelson, is the Authenticated Stamp Grading Company. Remember, I told you guys, stamps are kind of a dying collecting category, but there is still some interest out there. Obviously, it's not as big as the interest in, say, vintage comic books, coins, and the like, but the Authenticated Stamp Grading Company does exist, and it is owned and operated by the Certified Collectibles Group. Those are the five companies that make up CCG, again, out of Sarasota, Florida. Matt Nelson is the man in charge of those companies at present time. Now, while we're in Florida, let's go right next door to Georgia. More specifically, we're going to Norcross, Georgia, because the grading conglomerate known as Collectible Grading Authority owns and operates some of your favorite companies that you may not be aware of. If you collect vintage toys, Action Figure Authority, also known as AFA, they are owned by the Collectible Grading Authority. AFA is also affiliated with VGA, Video Game Authority. The grading scale that VGA uses is the exact same one that AFA uses to grade toys, action figures, and play sets. Now, a lot of people are not aware of this. There are two other companies that roll up through the Collectible Grading Authority. They are DCA, which is Diecast Authority. What do you think they grade? They grade Matchbox cars, Hot Wheel cars, and the like. And there is a fourth company known as CDA, which is Collectible Doll Authority. They obviously grade dolls. Now, obviously, when we look at the Collectible Grading Authority, their two most profitable and prominent companies are AFA for toys and action figures, and also VGA for video games, movies, and other types of media that are related to that category. Now, what's great about the Collectible Grading Authority is they use custom cases, meaning if you have a toy from the 1980s that comes in an oversized box that you know no other grading company out there would be crazy enough to grade, AFA, VGA, they will grade that sucker because they use custom-made in-house cases. This is why, even if you collect video games, a lot of video game collectors do like VGA because they're able to grade all mint, new in-box systems. It doesn't matter what era that system is from. They can create their own custom case and they can grade that item for you. Now, we already spent some time on the East Coast, both with CCG out of Sarasota, Florida, and the Collectible Grading Authority out of Norcross, Georgia. Now, we're getting in our plane and we're going to the West Coast, baby. We're going to Santa Ana, California, because the next prominent grading conglomerate we got to talk about, last but certainly not least, is Collectors Universe. Collectors Universe, believe it or not, owns 4 main grading companies, but most of you are probably only familiar with the top 3. Obviously, Collectors Universe owns and operates PSA, which is well known in sports card grading, Pokemon card collecting, Magic the Gathering collecting. If you do trading cards, you most likely know who PSA is. Not to be outdone by PSA, they also own coin grading company PCGS, and they also own PCGS Banknote, which grades collectible paper money and currency, much like PMG, Paper Money Guarantee, which is owned by the Certified Collectibles Group out of Sarasota, Florida. Now, most people do not know this. Wada Games was purchased by the Collectors Universe back in 2021, around the end, I think it was near 2022. So Wada Games also rolls up through the Collectors Universe. The fourth grading company that they own and operate is known as SGC, which also grades sports cards. Now, in all honesty, I have never used SGC because PSA also is owned and operated by the Collectors Universe. I have no idea why they still run both companies. In my opinion, I thought by now they would have rolled SGC up through PSA, but lo and behold, they do operate that company as well. Now, you must be aware, these are the 3 primary grading conglomerates that control third-party grading in the antiques and collectibles trade. Why am I telling you this? Because if you come to me and you say, Sean, I want to own and operate my own third-party grading company. Do you have any idea how much money I could make? I'm going to say, wait a minute, hold my gluten-free beer, because this is a pipe dream. It is not a reality. All of these grading companies that I just mentioned, with the exception of a few like Collectible Doll Authority or even maybe Authenticated Stamp Grading Company, all of these other grading companies, though, are well known amongst investors, collectors, speculators, dealers, and auction companies. And since auction companies have a symbiotic relationship with the grading companies, it makes it very hard for a newcomer to come into this market, make waves, and make a splash. Usually, if that happens, you got to look where the money is flowing from, baby, because you could have a case, I'm just saying, of alleged market manipulation, as what we've already seen potentially with one of these companies that is now part of one of these mega conglomerates. So you really have to use caution when a new third-party grading company starts to take the world by storm. You really got to do your research. You really got to be sure that they're on the up and up. Case in point, for those of you unaware, there was a third-party grading company that went by the name of IGS. Yes, are you sick of acronyms by now? Every third-party grading company pretty much uses an acronym somewhere in their name. Well, IGS stood for Investment Grading Services. They actually had a website. If you log on to www.investmentgrading.com, you are treated to a black screen, which says in white letters, "We are closed for the foreseeable future." Now, those of you that watch Pawn Stars, you are probably familiar with IGS because they came out of the gate and they started grading media, specifically movies, DVDs, Blu-rays, and video games. Unfortunately, my speculation is they didn't have the funding, the capital, the demand, the business to compete with the big boys that I just named. Because if we're talking grading video games and movies, we already have 3 top-tier companies that are doing just that. I can quickly name them. You have VGA, which has been grading video games since infancy. You have VGA, which also grades movies and DVDs and Blu-rays. You have CGC, which does grade video games and movies. And you now have Wada Games that not only grades video games, but now they're entering the market to grade movies as well. So IGS had their work cut out for them. It's apparent to me that they weren't going to be able to compete in this market that was pretty much monopolized by the CGCs, the VGAs, and the Wada Games of the world. So that's pretty much, in my opinion, I don't know this for fact, why IGS most likely went under. Now, there is an interesting development here. Believe it or not, IGS still has an active TikTok account. It's actually listed under IGS Collectibles, and they do have 35,000 followers and 194,000 likes. So I just find that to be an interesting development. I don't know if they're going to shut down their TikTok account, but at least at the recording of this video, it is active from what I can see. Now, a lot of people are reaching out to me asking me, well, Sean, you know, I really didn't take your advice. I didn't find your channel till later. I actually have some VHS movies that are graded by IGS. What do I do at present time? Well, unfortunately, usually when a grading company goes defunct, it actually can affect the value of the items, of course, that were graded by that grading company. So I would tell you that if you have anything good and valuable that was graded by IGS, I would suggest you send it in to one of these other companies, whether it be VGA or CGC or, heaven forbid, Wada Games, and get it graded. So that way, at least, it still has market value attached to it. If you're going to list something from a defunct grading company on eBay, or you're going to consign it to an auction house, in most cases, with few exceptions, you will usually get less for that item than an equivalent graded item from a top-tier grading company that is still in business. So that's really why I wanted to do this video. I just think it's important that people keep in mind, again, there are 3 main mega conglomerates that control all top-tier third-party grading companies within the antiques and collectibles trade at present time. Now, again, I'm not going to be talking about any of the smaller companies. I may do a video on them at some point, but I just want you to be aware that if you're going in the market for graded collectibles, your collectibles, for the most part, in my opinion, from that of an investor, from that of a consultant in the antiques and collectibles trade, should be graded by either the Certified Collectibles Group out of Sarasota, Florida, the Collectible Grading Authority out of Norcross, Georgia, or Collectors Universe out of Santa Ana, California. That is my personal opinion. That is my recommendation to you from one investor in these markets to another. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.